Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeart Radio Network, the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys from down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France, and of course you good old boys in Canada. But Big C, there's still no one I love more than you good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys?
Well, Charles, I'm trying to peel off a couple of shades of this tan that I got. I feel like I look like a pregnant woman and feel like a fat guy right now, you know. So I'm trying to be comfortable in all this heat.
Hey, well, all's fair in love and war. I tell you, it's been so hot in California, and I can't wait until we get to the fall season for kickoff. But I do want to say today is a beautiful August the 3rd, 2017, in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And Big C, I don't know about this global warming stuff. I saw Al Gore on TV talking about an inconvenient truth, and they're talking about the earth heating up. And I don't know if it's true or not because Donald Trump says it's not. So you know I'm inclined to believe everything Donald says. But I'll tell you, it's too hot right now. I got bald head, Big C. I shaved my hair, and it runs down me like a water fountain. Do you have the same effect, Big C, down south, Big C?
Well, Charles, it's cascading over the body because I got some birds and clears, you know, that the water doesn't flow straight. But I don't know if Donald understands that it's warming or not because he seems to be getting oranger and oranger, and I don't know if that's a natural hue.
Yeah.
I've seen that in some orangutan things, turning orange, but ever since he's become president, he's gotten oranger, his hair has gotten older.
Yeah.
So, only his makeup artist knows, I guess.
Well, it's a high pressure job, Big C. So, I was just listening to some good old boys talking about what's happening in the White House and what's happening in the world of football. And ironically, everybody brings it back to football, making things great. And tonight, it seems early, but we miss it. We have the Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio. I know it's just a preseason game. It's not as popular, perhaps, as the Summer Basketball League Championships that we just had, Big C. But are you looking forward to seeing it going on tonight, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charles, normally this game is played on the weekend, but I guess after the mishap that they had last year on the field with some paint.
Yeah, some fireworks, yeah.
Causing some pyrotechnic damage out on the field. And, they felt that they wanted to eliminate any possibility of hazards and take care of this game prior to the festivities of the Hall of Fame induction. I think it may take away a little bit of the love of the Hall of Fame induction, John, because people look forward to the game. But, as we look at preseason football, Charlton, numbers have always outshined baseball's all-star game, NBA's all-star game, because people's hunger for football in America.
Yeah.
One of the things veteran players always have fought against, Charlton, are the 4 preseason games.
Yeah.
That was something we always wanted a reduction of is the 4 preseason games. Get it down to 2.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, college football has no preseason games, and they go right in and they're up to 13 regular season games now.
Yeah.
The NFL, the reason for this is the money hungering of the owners.
Oh, yeah.
Because the players get a set salary during the preseason based on your years in the league. You know? Owners make the same amount of money per game and off these broadcasts.
Yeah.
So the money is really for the owners. It's not for the benefit of the players. And I don't understand why the Players Association, as big as it's gotten, Charlton, over the past couple of decades, haven't fought back against it. Hey, cut it down to 2 preseason games. You think about it, teams are scrimmaging each other all the time during preseason, during training camp. Cut down on that, cut down on the injuries. You know the 45 players that you're going to have on the roster guaranteed.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure out the last 8 through special teams and which rookies you want.
Yeah, that's always true, Big C. I want to say today's segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. A little bit of sad news over the world of the college football. The late, great coach Eric Parsegian, that coached Notre Dame for 11 years and won 2 national titles, passed away on Wednesday. And obviously Notre Dame football is really synonymous with college football, whether they win or lose. And not just because touchdown Jesus, but just because that school has had the mid part of the country. Obviously the Catholic school, a lot of people have different faiths in the country, but that's one that's been popular in the United States. But Eric Parsegian, as a coach, he had to win where they did not have the BCS complications and the challenges. But he did coach in the days of that. You had the great Bo Schembechler, and you had obviously Woody Hayes and Paul Bear Bryant. And I just want to get your thoughts on Ara Parseghian. I mean, a lot of people know him because they follow sports, but the young time kids probably missed out on one of the better coaches in the history of college football. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charles, he was one of those maverick coaches that turned around a program. When he had gone to Notre Dame, they had 5 consecutive losing seasons. Ara Parseghian, in just 2 short seasons, turned it around into a winning program. In 1966, he played Michigan State for the national championship, which was talked about as the game of the century. You know, and we've had a lot of those over the decades in college football. It seems like every era has one of those. But, you know, it ended in a 10-10 tie, and they both were named, you know, co-national championships. That Michigan State team had the great linebacker George Webster and the defensive lineman Bubba Smith on that team. Yeah. But Notre Dame, over the years, you know, has had dominant teams. A couple of years later, Ara Parseghian went on to win an outright national championship to give Notre Dame its second national championship under his reign. But this is a school that was known for Newt Rockley, the Four Horsemen. Yeah. Had, you know, several Heisman Trophy winners, the latest in Tim Brown, who, matter of fact, it was just 30 years ago yesterday that Tim Brown won his Heisman Trophy, Charlton. Yeah. But, you know, you think about Ara Parseghian and what he established. He established an era at Notre Dame that people of expectation. Yeah. You know, he built winning ways, and it went a long ways after him. You know, in his retirement, that, you know, people expected that from Notre Dame. We've seen a down year this past season from Notre Dame. But Ara Parseghian did it right. You know, you think about his era. I mean, this was pre-internet and all that. Yeah. We don't know what went on campuses and off campuses during those days. But when you looked at him as being significant in college football and coaching with character. Yeah,
and that's a good point you bring up. I think of John McKay back in the day during that era against Notre Dame. I've always admired, Big C, the USC Notre Dame games, and how, because both programs have always been synonymous with football, at least on the West Coast. USC, whether they're winning or not, they're still, you think college football West, you think USC. If you think South, you think Alabama. You think Florida, Texas. When you think to the Northeast, you think of Penn State, you think of Syracuse. But that Midwest is locked up by Michigan, Ohio State, and Notre Dame. Just give me your thoughts on how Parseghian, if he were coaching in today's time of everyone's on TV, almost every school has their own network. In fact, Notre Dame has their own network. They started that with NBC. How would he have ranked up with some of the great programs on the West Coast and down south, Big C, compared to playing a lot of the slower teams up in the Midwest, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about it, Charlton, he was charismatic back in that era because Notre Dame recruited nationally. Yeah. This wasn't a regional recruiting team. And he also recruited all, you know, ethnicity of players. Yeah. During his time, he wasn't just limited to say, okay, I got to have just white players on my team. Yeah. So Ara Parseghian was a trailblazer. And being at a Catholic independent school, Charlton, you didn't have that conference that you had to compete against. So you had to have a different way of bringing players in to say, hey, we're a standalone school. Yeah. So if we don't win, we don't get any recognition. Yeah. We don't get any sharing from bowls. And so that's always been a sell when you were an independent, to be able to bring in top flight players from around the country, to stand fast, be consistently competitive, Charlton. That's what he was able to do then, and I feel that, you know, a man of his character would have been able to do that now. Like I said, he turned around a Notre Dame program that had 5 consecutive seasons. Yeah. Yeah. And in his second season, he went 8-3 as a head coach. So he knew how to build a program and find the proper players to participate in that program. That's a very good point, Big C. But even he has 2 national titles at Notre Dame, and you think about Rockney and all them good old boys from back in the day. We talk about synonymous with football. When you look at Notre Dame, I still think that Lou Holtz, because Lou Holtz was there in the TV era, and Lou Holtz may be more well known as a college football coach at Notre Dame, but he only won 1 national title at Notre Dame, and that's when they beat West Virginia. And they could have had Miami in a rematch, but they chose to go West Virginia. That was an undefeated team, but nowhere near as talented as Miami. So even Lou Holtz knew how to play the politics side of sports. He didn't want to see the Hurricanes twice, Big C. But do you think Parseghian in Notre Dame country has the same kind of prestige that Lou Holtz had, even though Lou Holtz did it in the media age? Big C, your thoughts? When you think about Lou Holtz was a bounce-around coach, Charlton, when he came to Notre Dame. He coached in South Carolina, he coached in Arkansas, he finally got to Notre Dame, which was his dream job.
Yeah.
And you think about that. When coaches say, this is my dream job, this is where I want to be, I'll leave these other schools because Notre Dame calls.
Yeah.
And the reason for that was because the era that Parsegian had set up. You know, he had set up a program that people wanted to be involved in.
Yeah.
If Notre Dame job had become available and Notre Dame had came off of 3 consecutive sub-500 seasons,
yeah.
you think the Bulls would have been dying to get there? No, Charlton. He
yeah.
was not.
Yeah.
He wanted to go to a program that had been established and had a history behind it. Although he took over after Gary Fouts, who had had a couple of mediocre seasons.
Yeah.
But the groundwork was laid. New Holtz knew that he wouldn't have a problem recruiting at Notre Dame. Because the players at Notre Dame were going to get, they were going there because it was Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So he didn't have to worry about being in a conference in the Southwest Conference, you know, or in the SEC where he was competing against the rest of those schools. Notre Dame competes against nobody.
Yeah.
So when they're going to recruiting, you sell Notre Dame. You don't sell the conference. You sell Notre Dame.
Yeah, they are their own entity, and when you think about that, I think about all the football programs all over the country and how Notre Dame has their own TV program. I know the Pac-12 has the Pac-12 network. The SEC has the SEC network. Now, does Alabama have their own Alabama Crimson Tide network? They may have a local affiliate, but they're all known for the conferences having their networks. Notre Dame, NBC is basically Notre Dame's network, Big C. They both start with an N. How did they pull that off in a TV program that only caters to Notre Dame football every single Saturday, Big C? How'd they do that, Big C?
Well, this goes all the way back to the 60s and 70s. Notre Dame was the only university in America that games were replayed, tape-delayed, and edited on Sunday in college football.
Wow.
This goes back into the 60s and 70s, and I believe it was Lindsey Nelson who did their ball games.
That's good knowledge. Yeah.
Edited games every Sunday morning around 9 o'clock. Their games were put back. So when you talked about the first national recruiting team, program that had their tentacles across the country, all the kids saw Notre Dame football, all the top flight talent. So when players were thinking about being on a program that would be on TV once or twice a year, Notre Dame players knew that they would be on TV 11 times a year, Charles.
Yeah.
So they had an early recruiting advantage before any university out there, before ESPN knew what football was. I mean, ABC did a limited and CBS did a limited broadcast schedule. But Notre Dame was on NBC every Sunday morning, Charlton.
Yeah.
I know my whole youth, I watched them.
Yeah.
So I was always enamored with Notre Dame. So they had something that no other program had, and they always will have that.
Yeah, they definitely did it right. So whether you're talking about the most recent edition of Notre Dame football, you have Brian Kelly, and obviously he's kind of under fire right now at Notre Dame for having some bad seasons, even though he had some good seasons at Notre Dame, going 4-8 last year in 2016. And you talked about Parsegian turning in the golden domes around the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Big C. Obviously, when Notre Dame's on top, that football program as well as college football is a lot better to watch, just because they're such a staple of football for college teams. And I just want to offer our thoughts and condolences to the Parsegian family and all the players that played under him. I think they were saying even the movie Rudy was inspired by the late era Parsegian, and that movie went on to have some great stars, and obviously he's been a lot for college football, the world of college football. Last question I'll ask you about Notre Dame: how does Brian Kelly live up to that mystique that Parsegian produced at Notre Dame, or is it a totally different program today, Big C? Your thoughts?
Charlton, it's a different atmosphere in college football across the board from coast to coast.
Yeah.
When you look at the players out there, we think about iconic coaches from the 60s and 70s and even 80s that roamed the sidelines in college football. Those eras are gone because now, with the limited scholarships that all the programs have, there's equality on the college football play. You just can't go out and bring 70 of the top players in your region into your university and have them sitting around hoping for to get a chance to play. Players now will play across the country, so we don't have the dominant coaches. We have cheerleaders in the broadcast booth who wish for certain coaches. It's like Urban Meyer. He has his fan club, but we saw what he did this last game. They say that is. Jim Harbaugh, Clay Helton out there on the West Coast has his fan club. Wherever you look, there's a coaching fan club. It comes down to production on the field by your players. Can they get it done?
That's a very good point, Big C. I do want to say that sports is a $1 billion industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. And for every sport and event, you need athletic and event insurance. We go through Ben and Mark. They work with Big C Sports, and they got you covered whether you're a pro athlete, a collegiate athlete, your high school players, even your mom and pop soccer leagues. Reach out to them and let them know that Big C sent you. Big C, I want to touch on something still on the college football level. There's a kicker that was, I guess he lost his scholarship down at University of Central Florida because he was making money on YouTube. Now, if maybe I'm wrong, but I believe a lot of college programs will allow kids to have their names or their uniforms on these, like Madden 2000 or whatever these video games are. They'll have college football teams, and they'll even simulate the players, the way they look, etc. I think it's highly unfair for one player to make money and get it and lose his scholarship when the university charges people to go to a game. There are no free college football games as far as I know, other than sneaking in. It's so hypocritical, Big C. How is that still an issue where players can make money for the school, but they can't make money for themselves, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charles, I think the university might have been looking into that fund should have been coming to them.
Yeah.
And that's how petty these things are nowadays when you look at sports. You know, the manipulation and extortion of college athletes, and that's all it is. Everybody understands it.
Yeah.
Everybody's making money except for the guy who's making money for everybody. I mean, it goes back to institutionalized slavery.
Yeah.
It's what we come down to. Well, they're getting a free education. There's nothing free about that education when you have to work 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
There's nothing free about that. You tell your boss or your job that you're sitting there watching the game with a beer in your hand, leaning back in your lazy boy, saying, well, you know, I'm working. Okay, you work 40 hours of overtime without being compensated for it, and see how you feel at the end of the week.
Yeah.
That's what a college athlete goes through, Charlton. You think about the class time that they must endure. Then, you know, all of a sudden they got to go out and do a game. They got to travel.
Yep.
You know, you're not just traveling on game day. You're traveling generally the day before the game. So if you're in the sales industry or whatever, you get paid for travel time. Athletes don't get paid for travel time when they're on the road.
That's a good point.
You think about during the bowl season when they're gone in the NCAA tournament basketball, when you're on the road for 10 days.
Yeah.
You don't get paid travel time.
Yeah.
So here's a guy who learned how to do some entrepreneurship, and all of a sudden the university NCAA wants to yank his scholarship, saying it is propriety.
Yeah.
What they're saying is you have to starve and be a slave for nothing.
Yeah.
As a college athlete, you're getting a free scholarship. The scholarship is not free. Generally, they're granted by the government.
Yep.
Working off of government funds, the university's not paying for it because they're all endowment universities.
Yeah.
But it's just wrong. And here it is, most likely the coach gets a pay increase every year.
Yep.
You know, but no one says, well, that's wrong. You know, how much money does the coach need when he has a free house and 2 free cars, one for him and one for his wife? Every year, and the player can get a hot dog and a baseball cap.
And I still have that baseball cap they gave me back in the day, Big C. You know, something that's coming up in the world of sports. I heard, you know, the NFL and the CTE issues. Well, this thing is almost like an iceberg. I hear there are college players that are getting letters to join these class action lawsuits for CTE issues on the college level. The first time I heard something about it, I'm going to look more into it, but have you heard anything of that nature? That would wipe out football because, I mean, obviously it's not going to happen because they're going to have the best lawyers in the world that will defend the NCAA. But could you imagine if they had class action lawsuits with the Division I, Division II, Division I, AA, Division III schools? Next, they'll hit the high schools. I think it's just some lawyer trying to get his name in the paper, Big C. Do you think that will ever become a reality?
On every level, and we've seen players become concussed. You think about, you don't have the medical staff on a college level that you have on a pro level, even though you have a great, medical staff. But think about matriculating down to the high schools, Charlton.
Yeah.
You generally have an ambulance on the sideline, and that's the medical staff for most high school games.
Yeah.
And if you go even lower to Pop Warner, you got some volunteer parents standing around on the sideline being a chain gang helping out.
Yeah.
The concussion level, we all look at the NFL and focus on the NFL because that's the big money maker, okay?
Yeah.
Everybody's aware of the NFL. But there are more concussions on the college level. Think about it. How many colleges are playing football in America, Charlton? In excess of 300.
Yeah.
When we put all the divisions together.
Yeah.
And there's only 32 teams in the NFL. So there's 10 times the chance of having concussions on the college level than there are on the professional level. 10 times. Every time you think about a concussion concussion on the pro level,
yeah,
there's 2 times as many on the college level, Jonathan, and they're not noted because all these games are not broadcast. So it's not known. And then when we go back and look at the couple of million of players on the high school level, Charlton, that are playing in America.
Yeah.
So think about it. It's 100 times more chances of having a concussion on the high school level. And let's not even talk about Pop Warner, Charlton.
Oh, yeah.
Because we got these guys who just came out of the garage and everywhere else coaching these kids.
Yeah, I've seen some of those guys.
Frustrated jocks, and so they're going to teach a kid how to be tough, and they couldn't even start on their own high school team.
Yeah.
So we got bad coaching techniques.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem. So we all focus on the NFL because that's where we all make our money, gambling and everything and betting.
Yeah.
We don't look at the
the underground part of it. Yeah.
Going out there that are having to compete.
Yeah.
Who are coming home saying, "Hey, Mom, my head hurts bad. I don't feel good."
Yeah.
My son just lay down and take an aspirin because their parents are not medical experts. They're not taking them in for CAT scans, Charlton. They're not doing that. These kids don't have access to that. We know how Trump wants to get rid of all this insurance in America.
Yeah.
So now think about how many of these kids have pre-existing conditions now.
Wow.
Okay? Well, once we eliminate the Affordable Care Act in America, all these athletes who have pre-existing conditions and brain trauma will no longer be able to get coverage. They will be misdiagnosed, and most of them are at their youthful age, Charlton. They're misdiagnosed with what goes on. I remember growing up in high school, when you got Dean, they put some smelling salts.
Some smelling salts, yeah.
Even in college, on the little ammonia capsules, they would pop them, stick them under your nose, you shake your head out a couple times.
Yeah.
How many fingers I got up? That was concussion protocol.
Yeah.
And it's still that, Charlton, on the high school level. Concussion protocol on the high school level is an ammonia capsule, and how many fingers do I have up? Are you okay? That's it, Charlton. They're not pulling them off saying, "Hey, you're going to be sitting for 2 weeks. We're sitting in that." That doesn't happen because the pressure to win, you will victimize and make kids vulnerable for the pressure to win. So as we look at concussions and the need, we need to study more of the youth of America, not the pros. These are guys who make a copious amount of money and have the best medical staff that you can have.
Yeah.
And yet they're not safe. So if the pros are not safe, think about the guys who are unprotected. How safe are they, Charles?
Yeah, and that's a good point, Big C. But, it's kind of like we open up Pandora's box. And I know this sounds very selfish what I'm going to say, but do we want the leagues being sued for something that people know the danger is getting into it? So sometimes they say you got to sign a waiver even though you got to have insurance. Do we really want class action lawsuits against high school football, college football, and pro football when boxing and MMA are growing like firestorms? Big C, your thoughts?
Charles, what's the number one commercial you see on television now? You see some attorney talking about suing somebody for being in a car accident, okay?
Yeah.
How many people are in car accidents every day in America?
Oh, a lot.
They don't expect to be in a car accident.
Yeah.
So you know the dangers of what a motor vehicle will do, okay?
Yeah.
So you're driving down the street, you get T-boned, all right?
Yeah.
This happens all the time. You get in an accident that you had no parts of, you just happen to get hit. So do you sue or do you not sue? America is sue happy, so class action suits are there. Every time you turn around, there's a class action suit on television for mesothelioma.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any difference what it is. There's a class action suit. This is America. Until Congress put the cap on America's lawsuits, start the medical malpractice.
Yeah.
All right? Doctors will not diagnose and operate on people because they're scared of a medical malpractice.
Yeah.
The minute you put a cap on that, now all of a sudden it's closed down. But when you got an attorney that can walk in and talk about, okay, we got this class action suit for $800 million.
Yeah.
Knowing that out of the end they may get $300 million.
Yeah.
This is all they care about. The attorneys are going to get 60% of what they would settle, so they're not out of any money.
Yeah.
They're not the ones doing the research. It's their staff. It's their interns.
Yeah.
Doing all the paperwork. The attorney just walks in and argues the case. He doesn't do any filing.
Yeah.
That's all does, but he shows up. I tell you what an attorney is like, Charles.
Yeah.
It's like everybody who knows what the horse racing industry is like, okay?
Yeah.
They have this teaser stallion to go in to see if the fans are ready, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
They bring in the big stud horse that's won the Kentucky Derby to finish the job.
Yeah.
That's what an attorney is in a class action suit. Everybody's doing the work. He's just walking in looking
That's a very funny story, Big C. I want to close out our program with this. I was listening to something on the news. I said, Big C's on TV and didn't tell me. Richard Sherman was going off about Colin Kaepernick and how a lot of people, we don't want to call bigotry anymore. We want to call it something else. We want to call it some euphemism. We want to say, well, someone offended people. I mean, no one has a hard time saying that they're upset when black men get shot by police officers. That seems to be okay with mainstream media. But I keep hearing, and I just got to be honest, some of my white counterparts on radio saying, the troops. He didn't stand up for the troops. I'm so tired of hearing that garbage when he clearly said it wasn't about the troops. It's about reforming the criminal justice system, which even the Kerner Commission touched on. But I love Richard Sherman. Just like you, he's an intelligent black male, so he probably won't be on TV too much longer. Basically, they'll bring it to somebody else. They'll have who's that guy that was fighting dogs, Michael Vick. They'll put Michael Vick on instead of Richard Sherman next time to speak for black Americans, and we're not a monolithic group. But I just hope that they'll start calling racism, as opposed to saying, well, we don't want to upset the Ku Klux Klan that may not come to our games. A lot of stadiums are not full anyway when you have losing teams. So Tannehill gets hurt today. Flacco's hurt. Last year, half of every starter in the NFL was hurt. Kaepernick had 16 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions last year. I think that was tied with Tom Brady. Now, Big C, give me your thoughts again on what you think is going to happen. I think he's going to play again. And we know there's a segment of our media that's going to lie forever because it's called the Trump syndrome. How would you deal with it when we deal with Kaepernick and any quarterback that needs to be given an opportunity to help their team win? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charles, you would think that the NFL was about winning. Owners win automatically because they get paid.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Everybody else gets fired.
Yeah, that's true.
and so they can sit around and use whatever euphemism that they want
Yeah.
for Kaepernick.
Yeah.
But, the guy didn't do anything wrong. The only thing Kaepernick didn't do wrong is that he didn't commit a criminal act.
He would have been playing had he done that. He'd be playing. He'd be starting. Yeah.
But he doesn't have a felony rap. So it's hard for owners to justify a man who makes waves.
Yeah.
An African-American man who makes waves. You think about the racial, connotations that have been used in the NFL. Riley Cooper a couple of years ago when
he was tirade with the Eagles.
Coaching the Eagles.
Yeah.
You went on this racial tirade using the N-word.
Yeah.
One of the most ugly words in our society. What did the Eagles do? They signed into a contract extension.
Yeah.
Jim Cognito has used every racial epithet against every ethnicity in America.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Asians, blacks, Hispanics. What did he do? Got another opportunity, signed with the Buffalo Bills. Got contract extension.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
We see this up and down the list. That you can be a racially motivated person in the NFL using epithets against another ethnicity, and you get a contract extension. Josh Brown, the Marion family knew for 2 years that he was kicking his wife's butt.
Yeah.
20 police, reports on it.
Yeah.
They gave a 2-year contract extension on top of that.
Yeah.
So when you think about this, even the Ravens, the owner, knew Ray Rice and beat up his wife.
Yeah.
Gave him a contract extension. $8 million signing bonus up front. Guaranteed the signing bonus he couldn't get back.
Yeah.
He messed with cutting.
Yep.
So when we look around, Michael Vick, the only player in the NFL history with 2 $100 million contracts. He got $100 million after coming out of federal prison.
Killing dogs.
For killing dogs, they gave him a $100 million contract with Philadelphia for killing dogs.
Yeah.
So when you talk about Colin Kaepernick, just taking a knee, and what do people do when they pray, Charlton, in America? Okay?
Yeah.
What do you do when you pray? When you go to take mass, or whatever denomination you are.
Yeah.
When you go to the pulpit and you lean down.
Yeah.
You take a knee, and you say, "Oh, Heavenly Father."
Yeah.
Does anybody know what Colin Kaepernick was saying when he was taking a knee?
No. No.
Was he praying to God that America would become a better place? So when we look at all this cynicism of a man who's taking a knee for respect, he wasn't taking a knee of disrespect.
No.
When you take a knee, you take a knee of respect. When you're in England and Queen Elizabeth or King, come out.
Yeah.
Prince Edward, you take a knee, you bow. This is what you do.
Yeah.
Respect. Colin Kaepernick was serving up respect, but the racism in America
They painted it.
did not know what respect was until they twisted it, saying that he was being disrespectful
You know.
You think about when we've had so many lives lost in war, Johnson, in the Middle East, of this wasteless war that we've had for the past decade and longer.
Yeah.
Every soldier that has come back, when there's a casket there, they bow down to that casket, Johnson.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because that soldier has lost his life.
Yeah.
So Colin Kaepernick bowed down to the American flag. Okay?
Yeah.
He bowed down to the American flag, and everybody said he was anti-American.
You know what I think? I think at the crux of the story, Big C, I think a lot of white Americans just do not understand what it means to be racially profiled by law enforcement. They don't have a history of it. They don't have a history of being lynched. They don't have a history of being marginalized on the job, not hired because they're white. They don't have a history of that.
Don't they just get over it? Why can't you just get over it?
Yeah.
Tell me how every white American feels when they walk in and say you've been fired.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Can't you just get over it? You've been fired. Can't you just get over it? Don't worry about the kids eating.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay.
And I think.
Don't worry about paying your rent. It's all right. You've been fired because you're white.
And I think a lot of times, because people are so used to lies, even like the White House, there's so many lies that come out of our administration now, no matter whether you're Democrat or Republican. And there's been, I mean, people just know the truth, but sometimes it doesn't matter. But the last thing I'll say on this before we close is I hope, and we always said this, I think you're right about something else. Sports will bring people together more than religion, because churches are segregated. I guess we're all praying to some God. And also politics also has its own divisiveness. But there's something about the sports industry, and I respect intelligent men like Richard Sherman. I'm so glad that he was not a sycophant and he came out and spoke his mind, because at some point in time, we just got to get through the truth. We talked about Eric Parsegian, at the late Notre Dame coach, and how even the SEC, it was the coach down there, Paul Bear Bryant, that integrated the SEC with football. I think someone did it before him, but he was more popular. Kentucky started it. Yeah. Yeah, the Kentucky Four. But when Bear Bryant, because football's so prominent, it got more notoriety when he did it after they played at USC and saw a lot of black athletes. I think the NFL's a great sport. I think we got to get the bigotry out of the NFL, and that starts with a lot of owners. Now, if you're a bigot on the job, obviously you can lose your job over that. The Al Campanis garbage, also the guy that had the Clippers, owned the Clippers, and didn't want black Americans coming to a game unless they had a uniform on. I think if Goodell had more, I guess, decency about him, he would address it head on and not use euphemisms. Big C, I do want to get your final thoughts on that before we get to the final the statement. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, we found out that Roger Goodell is not David Stern, Johnson.
Yeah.
As far as his action and treatment towards players.
Yeah.
When you use the racial epithets in the NBA and you use it publicly, you go. You're no longer affiliated with that organization.
Yeah.
Your buddy Goodell has said it's okay. When we talked about Riley Cooper, we've talked about incognito.
Yeah.
And it's on tape of these players using it. You know, we've seen Bill Romanowski spit in someone's face.
Yeah.
Keep a job and African Americans keep a job.
Yeah.
So the level of tolerance in the NFL for white injustice, Sharpen, is there. It's just like on the streets of America.
Yeah.
You know, it emulates what it is. You know, this is a good old boys club, and as they say, many people, Colin Kaepernick couldn't keep his place. He got out of line.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to stay in line, so he didn't want to play the role. He didn't want to be a good old boy.
Yeah.
And because he didn't want to be a good old boy, keep his mouth shut, and bring attention to our improprieties and injustice in America and in this league, we won't employ him.
Yeah.
Not because he can't play, is because what we're going to do is set an example for the rest of the African American players in the NFL.
Yeah.
If you go out and say something or do something that we don't like, we will get you out of a job. Now, a white player can go out there and do what he wants, say what he wants.
Yeah.
We'll keep him. But if you're an African-American player in the NFL, you need to walk the line. That's the reason why so many of these African-American players have not spoke up.
Shaking in their boots.
Of Colin Kaepernick because of the fear factor.
Yeah.
It's just like you talked about slavery earlier, Jonathan.
Yeah.
If we lynch one, the rest will stay in line.
Well, you know.
Cut off the foot of one,
yeah.
The rest of them won't run away.
And that's
what we've seen with Colin Kaepernick. They cut out Colin Kaepernick's tongue, so the rest of the African-American players in the NFL have stayed quiet.
I think it's working for a lot of the dumb ones, but the smart ones are still speaking up. The last thing I'll say on that, and everyone can just look in your own life. As an African-American man, I've had law enforcement hold a gun at me just for being pulled over. I've seen it pointed at me, okay? I don't know how many white Americans have ever experienced that. Just for being pulled over, have a gun pulled on you by law enforcement. And I appreciate the job that law enforcement does, but I wonder how many of these talking heads that have ever had that experience to have it happen to them or their kids or the wife or the mother or the father. And I think that's the disconnect. They just haven't had it happen. No matter how much we talk about it, the need for criminal justice reform, they're not used to being sent to prison like at a rate of 6 to 1. They're not used to that. They're not used to being on parole or probation, 1 in 4 of them. They're not used to it because the system has been designed for them. Big C, I'm going to say there was a man by the name of Drew Bondini Brown. He was Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He had a slogan called Rumble, Young Men Rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, we got this kickoff of this practice game going on tonight in Canton, Ohio. And, what did they do before the start of the game? I think they flipped this coin to find heads or tails of who's going to get the kickoff, who's going to see.
Yeah.
Well, I got a 6-pack down there in the fridge, but I got a pint of hogger sauce in the freezer. I got a on the counter in the kitchen.
Wow.
That's what I'm looking forward to, is who's going to win. And see, do I open the fridge or the freezer?
Well, that's funny, Big C. I would say open both because every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, follow Big C Sports on iHeart Radio Network, the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys from down south. I want to say there's never any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman in trouble, just call 911 because no one should have to deal with that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports program, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.